Hey all you action figure enthusiasts out there, JC here with another T&I toy review. And for today, I'm going to be taking a look at the brand new DC Multiverse 7-inch scale Arkham Origins video game Deathstroke figure from McFarlane Toys. Now this figure, it comes in the same style packaging we see with all the McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. You've got the black box, the figure clearly displayed. Down below you've got the Multiverse logo and the name of the character. On the sides you just have the name, so nothing big there. And then on the back you have the artwork of the character. And then below that you have some images of other figures in the line. Alright, so let's get this open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figure outside the packaging along with the other contents. Now this is my very first McFarlane Toys Arkham video game figure. I have reviewed Arkham video game figures from other companies including Mattel and DC Collectibles, especially the Deathstroke figures from those companies. So in this review, I'm going to be doing a lot of comparison of those figures with this one and see how this new one stacks up. And right off the bat, I will tell you as far as accessories go, McFarlane went pretty skimpy on this figure, so already, you know, this figure is kind of falling behind the 8 ball when comparing it with some of the other companies and what we've gotten for Deathstroke. Okay, so let's start off with the standard stuff. You get the circle display base, which is the thin piece of plastic that we see with all the Multiverse figures. In fact, we see with all the McFarlane figures. This one has the DC logo on it, and you get the 1 foot peg. And as I always say, I actually like these display bases. They don't take up a lot of space, and they actually work pretty well, so you don't have to worry about your figure falling over. You also get the art card, which has the same artwork that is on the back of the packaging on the one side, and then you flip it over and you get the bio and stats. Finally, for the one weapon that is included with this figure, you get his sword. And overall, I don't think the sword looks bad. You've got some sculpting detail on the handle. It's done with just a black rubber type material. And you've got that black that kind of comes down on the blade as well. And then for the blade itself, it's just done with a metallic type silver. So it does look like a sword blade. And it's done with a pretty flexible plastic. It's not hard or anything, nor is it brittle, so you don't really have to worry about it breaking. It came out of the packaging, at least mine did, fairly straight, so no real issue there either. Now to go along with the sword, you also get the sheath, which I'm not too impressed with. It's really only half a sheath, and you've got the little peg here. It's made with just a rubber material, so first of all, unlike the sword, this is pretty bent. You can see it's kind of bent over because it's just made with rubber. And then what it is you just slide the sword in. Now when you have the sheath on the back of the figure, the sword stays in there no problem, even though again it's just half a sheath. So that doesn't bother me too much. But what I don't really like is I don't like how far up the sword sticks out when you push the sword all the way down. You've got this indent here where the sword is supposed to end, and then you can see how far out it looks. And when you attach this on the figure, I just think it looks really funny. Now to attach the sheath, you've got the hole in the back of the figure, and then you've also got this loop on his belt. So all you do is you just slide this in, and then you slide it down so that the little peg on the back there just plugs into the hole. And you know, it stays on there pretty good, but again, you can see that that sheath, because it's just rubber, is kind of bent. And then once you have the sheath attached, you just slide the sword in there, and you know, it stays in there pretty good. As I said before, that's not really the issue, though you do have to be careful sometimes sliding it. It can get caught, and because it's a soft plastic, you know, you could bend it. But what I don't like is just how far up that sword sticks. Now you can, if you want to, it's not meant to go down any farther, but you know, again, there's like a little indentation in the sheath for the sword, but you can kind of push it down past that. And I think it looks better when you push it all the way down, so it's not sticking up. But you can see from the back there. So, you know, from that standpoint, you know, it's okay, but definitely, you know, it's not the best sheath I've seen on a Deathstroke figure. And overall, what I'm really disappointed about is just the lack of weapons. Other companies like Mattel and DC Collectibles have given us more accessories with the Deathstroke, including things like his bow staff and pistols and rifles and things like that. Now, you do get a pistol with the figure that is sculpted on the right leg with a holster, but that is not removable, unfortunately. I really hate it when they do that, when they give us a pistol and a holster, but it's sculpted in. Definitely that should have been removable. Now, before we get into looking at the figure itself, I just want to give a shout out to Diorama Prints. They are a sponsor of the website. Their website is dioramaprints.com. They specialize in backdrops and such for toy photography, and they provided this backdrop that you see here. And if you go there, if you go to the website and use the code TOYNEWS10, you will get a 10% discount on your next order. Okay, now for the figure itself, starting with the head sculpt. It's not bad. I think, nice sculpting detail overall. I like how the orange side with the open eye looks. You've got good tone, skin tone, and the eye itself looks pretty good there. And I like the metallic orange that they use on the figure, so definitely I think that's a pretty solid job. On the blue side, however, I like the detailing. You've got the snick here, which I'm not sure if that's something that's actually in the game. Previous companies that have done this figure didn't include that, but it looks pretty good, and you've got some nice sculpting detail with the mask in general. However, I will say that the blue coloring on the mask I think is a little bit bright. It matches the rest of the figure, but I think in the game it is actually almost more of a black color, and primarily I'm just judging it by what other companies have done. So you can see here, like, this is the DC collectible version, and you can see that side is more black than blue. And even the Mattel one pretty much did the same thing. So I would say that blue is a little bit too light to be video game accurate. It doesn't look bad. It's just not, I think, to be more accurate, that side of the mask should be a darker color. And then on the back, you've got the tassel piece that hangs down, which looks pretty good. It's done with a vinyl type material, so it's very flexible. I wouldn't pull on it too hard, but overall, I think they did a good job with the back of the helmet. Okay, now moving down to the torso section. So there's nothing here that looks bad on the figure. However, I would say it looks very clean, and the blue portions don't look very armor-like. They don't look metal-like, which is very much a look that he had in the video game. So while again, I don't think it's a bad-looking figure, I'm not sure how accurate the blue portions of the figure are. Now, you do have that texturing on throughout the blue portions, which I think looks pretty good, like we often see on the McFarlane figures. He's got the strap, which is just done with black, and you've got the pouches and everything. He's got this piece that sticks out here in front of his, kind of on his chest, which is in keeping with the game. So nothing that's inaccurate. I just think he looks very clean, and the blue portions just don't look that metal. I think DC Collectibles, I hate to hold them to a higher standard, but I think DC Collectibles really knocked it out of the ballpark with their figure. With the paint apps, you've got all those scrape marks, and then the blue itself just looks like a metallic blue, so it gives it that armor feel. So I really feel like, McFarlane, compared to the DC Collectible one, the McFarlane one definitely is a little bit lacking. Even the Mattel one, which is also very clean looking, I feel like the blue portions have more of a metal feel to it, so it gives you more of that armor look. So even the Mattel one, I think, looks a little more accurate to the video game. I'm not saying the figure looks bad, I'm just saying it doesn't seem to have a very accurate feel to the game. Now you've got the shoulder pads, and you've got some indentations and stuff there, which I think good. And I do like the orange. The metallic orange that they use on this figure, I think, comes off looking good, even though, again, it's very clean. There's no scratch marks or anything, but I do like, at least it looks like it's actual metal. Then on the back of the figure, I think they've done a pretty solid job, even though, again, very clean. On the left arm, you've got those grenades or bullets, whatever you want to call those. So pretty good sculpting detail. They're very big on this figure, but that's kind of in keeping with McFarlane, so that doesn't really bother me too much. Now, one area on this McFarlane figure that I actually like better than the other two companies that did this version is here with the metallic silver at his midsection and in his arms, in the middle of his arms with the elbows. This is a silver with some texturing on there, and that seems seems to be more accurate to the video game than like what they did with the DC collectible one, which you can see is just black in the video game. And I double checked that there is actual metallic silver here on these portions, and both Mattel and DC collectibles really didn't include that on their figures. Mattel tried to, they drew in some lines here for that kind of chainmail look on the arms, but they didn't really include it in the midsection. And so definitely I think with the McFarlane figure, that area is more accurate and comes off looking better than the other two companies. And then moving down to the crotch section, you've got the gun holster, the belt with the pouches, which are done with a solid black color. Doesn't look bad though, again, very clean. And then you've got just the blue and the orange throughout the legs. And with the hands, you get two grip hands, and on the left hand, you even have a trigger finger, even though they didn't include a gun, but he can hold the sword in both hands, and he does hold it nice and tight. And he can also grip the sword with two-handed poses, so that's pretty nice as well. And then down with the boots. Sculpt, I mean, it looks like they did a good job with the sculpting detail, capturing the look of the armor that he wears in the game. I just think with the paint applications on the blue portions, they could have done a better job of making it look metal and probably dirtying it up a bit with scratch marks and things like that. Okay, so this figure stands right about 7 1/4 inches tall. As I mentioned before, I don't have any of the other McFarlane Toys Arkham figures, including the Batman figure that they recently did, but here is a comparison of the McFarlane Detective Comics 1000 comic book based Batman figure, and these two are about the same height. Now here's a comparison of the DC Collectibles Arkham Origins Batman figure. McFarlane actually has not done yet an Arkham Origins Batman figure, so they've done an Arkham Knight and such, but not Arkham Origins. But this is the DC collectible one, and you can see the Deathstroke figure is maybe a hair taller. Here's a comparison of the DC Collectibles Arkham Origins Deathstroke figure, and you can see the McFarlane Toys one is a bit taller. However, just looking at these two side by side, again, I've really got to give DC Collectibles credit for all the detailing with their paint applications, with the scratch marks, the metallic on the blue portions. I think they did a much better job here of capturing the overall look of the character from the video game. Here's a comparison of the Mattel Arkham Origins Deathstroke figure, which is a 6-inch figure, so definitely the McFarlane figure is taller. But even with Mattel on the paint apps, I got to give Mattel credit for giving us more of a metallic look on the blue portions. And then finally, while technically not video game based, here's a comparison of the Mezco 112 Collective Deathstroke figure along with the McFarlane one. The 112 collective figure obviously is 6-inch, so once again the McFarlane figure is taller. Now for articulation. So this figure, the articulation is pretty much on par with the other McFarlane DC Multiverse figures that I have. And honestly, it is actually more articulated than both the Mattel and the DC collectible version of Deathstroke from the video game. So I got to give that one to McFarlane Toys. Now for the head, he can turn the head to the left and to the right. He can look down really good, and he can actually look up pretty good as well, at least better than like the Flash figure that I looked at last week. And then you also get a little bit of head pivot with this one. Actually, you get pretty good head pivot. So overall, I would say the head movement on this one is solid. Now he does have these shoulder pads, but that really doesn't limit you getting the arms out. So good movement there. You also have those inner butterfly joints, so that gives you a little bit of extra back and forth movement there at the arms. You do have a bicep swivel, so, and again, even with the shoulder pads, that really doesn't limit it. You get the double hinged elbows, so good bending there at the elbow. You get the ball hinge joints like we always see with these figures. So you've got the rotation and you've got good up and down movement. Now here, you don't get an ab crunch joint, but you do, it is a very soft plastic. It's actually, I can't even tell if there's something underneath there. It almost feels like it's hollow. So I don't know if over time how that's going to work out. But you still, I mean, it doesn't have great forward movement there at the midsection, but I would say, again, it's on par with other McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. So even though he doesn't actually have that ab crunch, at least not a visible one, you still get about the same range of motion, and you get the rotation at the waist, you get the pivot at the waist. You don't get the pivot at the midsection like you do with some of the other figures, again, because it's a solid piece. But, you know, overall, you know, I would say that the midsection movement is on par with other figures in the line. Then with the legs, he can do the splits about that much. You do have the holster and stuff that kind of limits that a little bit. You can get the leg forward pretty good, and then you can do the leg back really good. You get that kind of inner thigh swivel like we always see with these figures. So not what I call a true thigh swivel, but you do get a little bit of rotation there with the leg. And then you get double hinged knees, so he can bend his knee about that much. And then with the feet, you have those ball type hinge joints, same with the wrists. So you've got some up and down movement. However, you do have this piece that comes down over the foot. So that's about as far up as you can get the foot, but you do have good down movement. You've also got rotation. You can rotate the foot all the way around, and you get some pivot with these type of ball joints as well. And then like with all the McFarlane figures, you get the toe articulation, so you can do the toes up, and you've got 2 peg holes on the bottom of the feet. Okay, so that's my review. So overall, honestly, I went into this review with pretty low expectations. I had been hearing pretty bad things about this figure, and in some ways, this figure actually pleasantly surprised me. In regards to the articulation, while it's not the best articulation in the world, it is better than what we see on the DC collectible version and the Mattel version, and it is in keeping with the other figures in the line, even with the torso section. So I don't really fault the figure much there. The lack of weapons is something that I'm pretty disappointed about. I definitely feel like the pistol should have been removable in the holster, and they should have also probably included his staff, which is something I believe he used in the video game. The sword, you know, it's not bad, but definitely we should have gotten some more accessories. Now, the other area where I kind of fault this figure is I do think it looks too clean, and I don't think the blue portions look very metallic-like like you see in the video game. So I don't think the figure looks bad, but I don't think it captures the overall look of the figure. In regards to that, I think the DC collectible figure wins hands down. Now, if I had to choose between the McFarlane and the DC collectible one or the Mattel one, I definitely would take the McFarlane one over the Mattel one, but it would be a tough call between the DC collectible one and this one. I probably would go with the DC collectible one just because I think it looks a little better. But again, this isn't too bad of a figure, and if you're a fan of Deathstroke, I think this is one that you will want to check out. Now, this figure is available now. You can get it at places like our sponsor, Big Bad Toy Store. As always, I'd love to hear your own thoughts on the figure. Let me know in the comments section below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification. Stay safe out there, guys, and until next time, I'll catch you later.
Hey, thanks for watching today's video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification so alerted every time I upload a new video. And be sure to head over to the Toy News International and Marvelous News Message Boards communities. It's a great place to talk toys and win cool contests like $100 store credits to Big Bad Toy Store. And remember, action figures are great.